I'm going to make a movie about it. I felt like it opened my mind to what this whole world is, you know, whether it's simulation, whether it's Matrix. Whoever's watching this is going to think I'm freaking psycho, because I started being completely okay with, if this all isn't real, that's okay. Like, it's real to me. Maybe I'm still in the chair. Maybe I'm still this is in my head, but I don't even give a crap.
Why ketamine therapy? Talk about some of the things that have surprised you through doing it.
I literally felt like I was losing my sense of reality for a while, where it starts scaring you. You're like, am I suicidal? Am I all these other things? Because you just don't know what's real. And I was like, am I in a white padded room and I'm in a straight jacket and this is just all in my head?
How do you view fighting?
We're all fighters in certain way. That was actually what F3 originally was supposed to stand for, was, you know, fuel for fighters. Teachers, single moms, students, we're all fighting for whatever our goal is. Mixed martial artists just happen to fight and channel their energy and their discipline into literal fighting. But man, fighters will be the first to surprise people of their lack of conflict that they want in this society, in their neighbor. They're like, we punch people for a daily job. Why do we need to solve our daily issues with punching?
Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond the Cover podcast. My intent with creating this podcast was to provide a platform where men can speak openly about their journeys with mental health without fear of judgment while doing so. While I, the host, or you, the listener, may not agree with everything or anything that a certain guest says for that matter, my focus is not to decipher what is right or wrong. Rather, it's to gain a better understanding of why somebody thinks and acts the way that they do. And with this understanding, we will begin to make better sense of our own lives and the world around us. So join me as we open the books into these men's journeys and dissect the pages within. Today's guest is Harrison Rogers. You, the listener, today are going to hear more than a few stories of how Harrison always keeps the well-being of others in mind as he creates new ventures in life. Harrison's also going to talk about his experience with ketamine and how that actually was very transformational in his life. It's a very interesting topic, as is everything else that we discussed today. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Harrison Rogers, welcome to Beyond the Cover.
Beyond the Cover.
Beyond
That's perfect.
The cover. Yeah. So the premise behind it is, at face value, we all have a book front page, but that's superficial. You know, you and I both know that there's something much deeper than that to people. So we got to open up the book, man. We got to talk about what's going on within the pages.
No, I knew the premise of your content and I love it, but that title really is perfect. You know, don't judge a book by its cover and beyond. So well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Harrison. You're too kind, and we'll dive into that because you are, man, you're a beam of light. Ever since I've gotten to know you, you are quite the giver. You're always looking out for everybody else. And so on the cover, as we look at you, you're a serial entrepreneur. A couple of things. You're the owner of the United Fight League, correct?
Proud, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And what I think is cool about this is you offer health insurance, life insurance, and shares in the company to the fighters. That's
first combat sports league to do it.
I was going to say, no one else is doing that, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You decided to be the first to go out of your way to offer something different. You're also the owner of F3 Energy.
Yes.
Which you're repping proudly right now.
Always.
I was hoping maybe you were going to bring a can or two.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're okay. I'm already jacked off caffeine right now.
I'm sure you're. Talk about not being a giver. You're taking it back already. I apologize.
No. Hey, man. You know, it's probably for the best that I didn't have that additional caffeine in me. You also this. Okay, so this one I don't think we've just talked about, but are you the owner of Lexington Services?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a learning center that provides educational and life skills support for individuals with special needs.
Yep.
It's absolutely incredible, man. When I was doing my due diligence, I was researching just something that we hadn't discussed, but I think is needs to be brought to light. That, I mean, the philanthropy, like where you're going with this. I mean, just one more fold and the wrinkle with it all. And you have 5 kids. 5. Okay. Are we going to?
Let's get into it all. Yeah.
Okay. And you're 32 years old.
36.
Oh, you're 36?
Okay. I know.
Okay. Google. This is where Google, sometimes you never can trust everything you see.
Well, I wish 32,
You look 32.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I'm 31, so I didn't think you were that much older than
I
me.
feel 70, the body's hanging out with all the fighters from UFL, seeing what they can do at 50.
Yeah.
I'm like, 36 is as good as it's going to get for me.
No, man, it's only up from here, and I know you're just getting started. So, Harrison, I want to jump right in on the topic of giving back. I think you are somebody that I've noticed goes above and beyond to a greater degree than what I see from most people. I think you're always considering others. You can see that in what you offer to fighters that join your league. You can see that with the Lexington services. And when we met, you talked about, how can I help you? And you were adamant, and you would check in. And I often find that when people are really passionate about something, they either had an abundance of it, as they were growing up, or they lacked it. And so therefore they tried to basically bring it because they didn't have it prior. Where do you fall on that spectrum as far as, did you receive a lot of love growing up? Did you feel like you didn't receive enough? How did this become your passion to give back?
That's a cool thought. I can totally agree that people who I look up to as givers and people that give back, that is a cool thought to be like, they're usually a polar, whether they were deprived of it or they had an abundance of it. I probably fall more, I grew up very humbly as far as resources and worldly stuff, but as far as love and abundance of that, my family, was a little bit broken, but man, I was never I never felt unnoticed or unappreciated. And so I would say I felt more on the abundance and the love portion, but without money or without things to give back with, I wouldn't say we were very charitable. I mean, not because we didn't have it in our heart, but we just didn't have anything to really give. So now on that end, I probably was on the other end of had nothing and wasn't very, and I always wanted to not be a taker. Like, we were kind of the black sheep family of the cousins of the whatever. And so I always felt like we were the ones that were being paid for to go to big trips or go to dinners or whatever. It was always like, oh, come along, but we'll pay for you. I was like, I want to be on that side. So I guess on the end of actually providing financial support and stuff, it was a big incentive to be the opposite of how I grew up.
Okay. Absolutely.
So that's kind of a cool way to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. If I heard you correctly, you felt that individuals were giving to you and you wanted to, now you said, want to be on the other side, and now here you are. I want to dive deeper in that realm. Now that you are giving abundantly, do you ever feel the weight upon your shoulders that you have a lot of people counting on you?
A lot. Yeah.
Talking about that.
5 kids is the first, most important that I take care of, but I do have over 500 employees that lean on me to make sure that the company survives so that they can keep getting a good paycheck. And that's pressure, and I feel it, and I don't take it for granted. But a lot of people put a lot of trust in me for, when they make a commitment, whether we're building a company or building, we're doing movies now, I have people that are willing to move from other continents to live by me to make sure that this gets, that's a lot of trust and pressure on me, but I don't take it for granted. And maybe that's bad for my personal health. Like, I know the stress and the pressure, I can get into some of that mental health stuff, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that, where I don't want to fall short in performing because of the stress.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. With as much as you have going on, what are some avenues that you go to manage that stress to make sure that it never becomes overwhelming? Do you have a few things that you lean on?
I need to get better at that.
Okay.
But I do, just recently, I bought this beautiful piece of property in the mountains where I see that quickly becoming the sanctuary, the release, the exit of the chaos. So I haven't been good at it in the past, and my health has shown what has been happening from the stress, but I'm excited to turn a chapter and make health, not just mental health, because I have been pretty good at knowing when my mental health is getting pretty exerted, but physical health, man, those go hand in hand. So I'm excited to get up into nature more and fish. I'm not a big fisher, but we have a big old pond now, and so I'm excited.
What do you feel it is about that environment, specifically being up in the mountains, that allows you to decompress and relax? What is it specifically that environment brings to you?
I want to do some research on it because I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of science to grounding and to nature, and so I'm not scientifically knowing what it is, but just witnessing when you get up there and you're barefoot in, dirt that has never been disturbed by man, I guess, and then just this natural flowing creek that you can just lay down in, and it's healing. And I don't know what causes it, but it has been a personal experience witnessing the health benefits.
Where'd you get the inspiration to lay down in the creek? It's I'm sure it's frigid.
It's freaking cold.
So you're getting, basically, it's an ice bath.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, and I know there's a lot of science behind ice baths. So I don't know. I just did it and it felt really good. And now my kids do it and everybody's just like, wow, this is healing. And I should look into what dopamine dumps and all that comes from it, but it is so nice.
Yeah.
I'm excited to invite you up there.
I was going to say, yeah, where's it at?
It's between Payson and Heber. So it's not far. It's like an hour and 20-minute drive.
Yeah. And you've had the property for how long now?
2 weeks.
Okay. I was going to say, I'm like, wait, why haven't I got the invitation yet?
I know. No, I promise. No, There's no holding out. It's just been, I exited one of my companies, not fully. I'm excited to sell the second half of it, but this first sale of the company, I was like, I can't just dump it all back into another business venture because that's what I've currently been doing. It's time to enjoy some of it and have some personal properties, and we're buying a jet now and stuff. So there's some fun things to happen, and the ranch was the first thing we did. Yeah.
What's the jet going to bring for you? Is that just going to allow you? I mean, you obviously must have a lot of travel in the works, or what are you utilizing it for mainly?
First and foremost, tax shelter. You can depreciate the heck out of a jet. I mean, honestly, that's the only reason. Otherwise, I'm pretty frugal in most cases, but with the sale of the business, I had to figure out how to depreciate and shelter some gain profit wise. But it also does buy back a lot of time. Me and a lot of our team here travel a lot. And when you're spending 2 to 3 hours prepping to travel to and from, that's, on a round trip, 6 hours wasted. And then that's if you don't get delays or if you don't get any type of changing, where 6 hours, I'm starting to realize, is a lot of your life when you do that every 2 weeks. And I'm like, I could buy some of my own time back.
Yeah.
So it's a tax shelter, but it's also buying some of my time back.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day I'll experience the jet life. That's I didn't even know the tax benefits, but it makes sense. I'm sure there's much more than what I'm realizing. I honestly, since coming out to Scottsdale, the wealth that I see here versus back in Missouri where I'm from.
Sure.
Oh, it's almost night and day. Do you ever feel, I'm curious, being in the environment near Scottsdale, there's a lot of money, a lot of throwing it in your face. Do you ever feel the pressure to be something more than what you are, or do you just stay in your own lane for the most part?
I've definitely stayed in my own lane for most of my life. Scottsdale is really close to, but I was born and raised in Mesa, which is, a little bit east of Scottsdale. So I don't even really know much of the streets over here, even though it's a 15-minute drive. I stay where my bubble is, and I've just built businesses in this little bubble. And I haven't, until 2020, I dabbled in politics for a while, and I just realized how toxic politics, big corporations, Hollywood, any public eye stuff. And so keeping up with the Joneses definitely is real. And I have luckily up to this point never really played in that swamp.
Yeah, it sounds like you'd rather just stay out of the spotlight, be on the back end of it. I'm curious, because you're not concerned about comparison. It doesn't sound like you're just doing your own thing. Are you? I know I see you guys posting a lot with F3. I mean, you're constantly, you have a presence online, but are you constantly online? Do you find yourself scrolling on social media quite a bit?
I do have an amazing team that does it for me, but my personal accounts are me, and I spend probably too much time on it. It definitely is not as much as it might seem, just because we do post so much. But yeah, speaking earlier, like sitting on the toilet, I'll be on that thing for an hour before I realize it. And so I do enjoy it, and seeing the interaction and the community that we're building with F3 and UFL. And so that's the rewarding part. But with that rewarding part also comes the haters and the toxic stuff that honestly is good for the algorithms. It gets people talking, gets engagement, but I'm such a thin-skinned guy. Like, I wear it, so I'm all, why don't they like me? I'm a cool guy. I'm nice. What? They don't even know me. If they knew me, they would like me. And so I kind of, need to be better at that and thicken up my skin a little bit, because even an hour or two on social media, it'll change your night as you're going to bed, or if you look at it first thing when you wake up, it kind of changes your day. And I'm like, why am I doing that to myself? So I do spend time on there. I need to get better.
Do you set parameters for yourself when you're on social media? I mean, are you staying mindful of your time, or do you often find yourself mindlessly scrolling and then it's an hour later, your legs are dead on the toilet? Exactly. As we said, that's a guy thing, is what we're finding out.
The toilet definitely is all parameters are gone. I don't have time for all. Yeah, but I do just because of the daily schedule. I don't have a lot of free time to just lose myself in the vortex of social media. But I do need to be better at setting up parameters, because that sounded smart.
Well, you and I have talked, and I'm in my own journey with it. And I think being mindful is step number one if you want to create positive change. Because we're in a society now where depression's at an all-time high. Social media use is at an all-time high. We're seeing a correlation between it. How do you see social media as a whole? I ask because you guys are on social media. That's how you are seen. Do you feel that it's a net positive, or in your situation? I know it depends from from one situation to the next.
Definitely a necessary evil. And just like any tool, I see it as a tool. It could be great and valuable and invaluable, and it can also be abused and dangerous in other scenarios. So I'm very grateful for the tool that it can be, and we're definitely utilizing it as a tool. But I see how quickly not only other people, but myself can fall into the dangers of it. And I don't really know a solution. Like, obviously the parameters and keeping yourself in check, but from what it innately is causes the problem. I don't know how you change or provide maybe an Elon Musk or like a Mark Zuckerberg can figure it out soon, where it doesn't have the cons to it, but it just, because of inherently what it is, seems like it can't be solved. It's a toxic, when people don't have the natural consequences of being hit in the face for being a keyboard warrior, or just saying terrible bully type of things, and you don't have to have that personal natural consequence of the guilt or the looking somebody in the eye after you just crush their entire image and their self identity. And you can just do it under an anonymous bot account. And it's way too available to destroy people without people even feeling the natural consequences of doing that to somebody.
Mhm.
Because the people in the back end, when you were a bully and you would just do horrible things to people like wedgies and make them look super stupid in front of the whole class, like that one person they were obviously broken individuals. Like that was happening to them at home.
Mhm.
They were, that guilt and that shame that comes with that, it limited people from doing it, because who in their right mind wants to be that person? The computer allows people to have those intrusive thoughts of being like, I'm going to bully this person. I'm going to bully, without having to have those natural consequences of everybody sees me as this evil person.
Mhm.
It's like, no, I can be this evil person and not be seen that way. It just seems gross.
It is. I couldn't, agree with you more. I'll get the negative messages and I'll start typing up to show up. Then come to the city, and then I realize I backspace it because I'm like, I'm not stooping to that level. But there's people can stay anonymous. They can hide behind the screen. There's no accountability to be had. You brought up something really interesting. It's a topic that I was just stewing on recently. I was talking with someone else about this, the topic of bullying. I want to know your thoughts on it as a whole. Do you feel that it's completely wrong and we should do everything in our power to eliminate it from society? Or do you see the potential as almost it's a necessary evil for some people? The reason why I ask is because I was bullied growing up. I think it ended up being one of the best things for me because I basically tried to build something to impress others and to stop the bullying from happening. I was like, I'll get big, fast, and strong. That became a part of my identity. I felt that it was meant to happen, and it pushed me into who I am today. What are your thoughts on bullying? Do you feel it's a necessary evil, or that there needs to be a balance of it?
Definitely a balance, because I totally get your point. As we're refining metal and steel, and we're trying to craft the perfect sword, as Frank Mir says all the time, you go through that refiner's fire, and you're getting beat up, and you're getting, crushed, so that you become the best version of yourself. I totally get that point, but there's also, if you do it too much, that sword is going to break and it's going to be shattered and not what it could have been. So, I do think our society has gotten super soft, where some bullying, that term has become so quick to call bullying. Like some things I think isn't bullying. It's like constructive criticism. But it hurt my feelings. Well, maybe the criticism, it hurts your feelings because maybe you agree with it. Maybe you're secretly, that you're overweight, or that you're whatever. And so somebody calling you, hey, let's go to the gym. You're putting on a few pounds. That sounds like bullying to some people, but it's constructive criticism that it's hard to look inwardly. So I definitely agree that nobody should straight up, wedgie somebody and dunk their head in a toilet and flush it in front of the whole school. That's physical abuse and bullying. But there does need to be some type of motivation and encouragement to better. Like if you're just like, oh, nobody's ever going to want to take my lunch money, so I'm never going to learn martial arts. Nobody's ever going to think I'm fat. They're just going to think I'm beautiful no matter what I do. I'm never going to brush my teeth or, lose weight or whatever. Those are bad. Like not having any type of standard to make you feel inadequate for is just a recipe for being the most mediocre person on the planet, or even worse. So having standards is there, but some people would call those standards bullying. Mm-hmm. That was a long-winded answer for.
No, I love it.
I think there's a fine balance.
And I agree with you. I think we're heading towards where we already are there, extremes in society, where the eradication of something isn't the way to go. I think there's a purpose in everything. And I think you have to dissect it on a case-by-case basis. Do you feel, what's your overall feeling towards the pulse on society as it is today? Do you feel that we've went too far down a path and there's really no chance of turning it around? Or do you feel like we can turn it around? And if so, how do we go about doing so?
We've definitely gone so far down the road of soft, of coddling, of protecting. But I never think anything is too far from returning. You know, I think of everything as yin and yang, and what unfortunately with the pendulum or any type of, I don't know who, Newton's law or whatever the physics smart people were.
He's one of them.
Yeah, he's one of them.
Yeah.
You know, as far as it can go, I never think it's too far where it can't come back. The only problem is that it swings back as far. So I'm worried that I know it can correct and that it probably will, but how far then is the damage that it's going to correct itself before, you know, it kind of starts to make it back into middle, to center. And hopefully that doesn't mean that we turn into the most abusive, bullying, don't be the soft, blah, blah, we need to be hard again. But history shows, you know, as things correct themselves, it's the pendulum. Yeah. So it's a worry, but that's my thought.
Why do you think we swing to extremes? Why do you feel we never can just find our place back in the middle?
Knee-jerk reactions. I don't know if it's human nature or if it's, it's definitely impatience. If people feel like this is wrong and it's wrong because of this, it's like, okay, well, the quick fix is the next extreme because we're going to land here, but it never lands here. It always, you know, so I don't know if it's just human nature that the knee-jerk reaction is always extreme, but it just shows that we don't really know how to yet. Hopefully we learn and evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk to you about the topic of fighting. You're involved in that market. I would say it's a passion of yours to a degree. What are your thoughts on fighting? Again, it's another one just like bullying where there's a lot of individuals that say that it's too violent, that it shouldn't be in our society in any capacity. I'm going to go ahead and guess that you don't stand on that belief. How do you view fighting?
Fighting, that word is not specific to mixed martial arts, in my opinion, or like we're all fighters in certain way. That was actually what F3 originally was supposed to stand for, was, you know, fuel for fighters, teachers, single moms, students. We're all fighting for whatever our goal is. Mixed martial artists just happen to fight and channel their energy and their discipline into literal fighting. But man, fighters will be the first to surprise people of their lack of conflict that they want in this society, in their neighbor. They're like, we punch people for a daily job. Why do we need to solve our daily issues with punching? It's like, no, let's put our minds. But a lot of the people who don't physically fight think that the fists and whatever is how to solve problems, and, you know, road rage or whatever. And so I totally understand the conflict of like, we're literally being entertained by what we tell kids not to do in the classrooms or whatever. So I get the conundrum, but it's such a art and respectful competition that I look at it personally as like basketball or soccer or whatever. But as a community, as a society, I do see the dangers of desensitizing the masses to fist combat, you know. And at the beginning, it started out, you know, MMA was looked at as underground, you know, illegal, holy crap, only the craziest barbarians are going to go down there and fight, and it's so bloody. And now, you know, a lot of the cards are like snooze fest. People are so desensitized by fighting that I do see the danger of, okay, well, now what do we do to entertain people? Now what do we do to fix that sensation of combat entertainment? Are we going to throw weapons in there now? Are we going to, you know, throw lions in there like back in the gladiator time? So I do worry about the extremes that we talked about previously of always pushing the envelope of what's exciting because we've been so desensitized. But fighting itself is not a worry of me of, I forgot how you phrased it, but it's not a danger until it is, which now people get desensitized and they're trying to get that wow factor. And, you know, they're doing bare knuckle boxing now, which it again, to me, is just more realistic MMA, but I feel like it started because people wanted the next more scary thing, the next more violent thing. And so that I don't know how to solve. And that's worrisome because it's an insatiable, bottomless pit of what's next.
So I didn't even think about the evolution or the next step with fighting, but with you mentioning that what happens when people become too desensitized to what they currently have available. Is there anything out there that you're aware of now in the fighting world that where it's starting to lean in a dangerous
Unhealthy
direction?
way? Totally. I mean, luckily things start out kind of backyard-ish, and YouTube will take it down, or, social media will take it down. But that's how MMA kind of started. It started to get picked up a little bit, and then, senators will come and bash it in their state and say it's completely illegal. But then enough people got curious, enough people heard about it, and then they started kind of getting that popular demand where then laws changed and became permittable, and nobody would have ever thought that would have happened. And so right now it seems crazy to think that we would allow people to fight with weapons. Like right now it does, but in 10, 12 years, it terrifies me, and people might think I'm crazy, but what if it's legal, if people sign a waiver that it was enough money to get paid and incentivized enough to fight to the death? It's terrifying to think of, but we've seen people think things are crazier come to fruition in the past.
And so have you heard chatter of anything in the fight industry, you're like, wait, we're starting to head that way? I'm just curious if like these conversations are happening now. That hasn't happened yet as far as the implementation.
Nothing as far as like legitimized combat stuff. I haven't seen anything, but from, MMA to now bare knuckle boxing, and, that kind of evolved a little bit to more. And then, they're doing like fighting in cars now where we can choke each other with seatbelts. And, I don't know if you've seen those clips.
That's actually a thing.
Yeah. It's called like car jitsu or something, where you start out tied out and then you can like choke people out with seatbelts. And, it's what else is going to get the views? What else is going to get the, let's fight in pools. And hopefully if you get knocked out, you don't drown. It's like what pushes the curiosity. So I haven't seen anything formalized into a legitimate league, if that's what you're asking, but we see it everywhere. What is going to gain traction? What's going to gain attention? Phone booth brawls. If you've seen that, where there's two people in I just don't think it's that far-fetched to think that in X amount of years, we will see people fight to the death, and it's not, that it's not illegal.
Yeah.
I hope not, knock on wood. That would be terrible, but humans are weird.
I'm just actually curious. This has popped up in my head. Do you think that there's going to be any type of AI incorporation where fighters, where if we can't distinguish between what's real and what's fake, that there will become a place where fighters will be able to fight without actually physically hitting each other? But if there's the AI component where it looks real, do you think that takes away from the sport if they were to do that? Do you see that? Is there any talk of that happening? Or?
I don't think anybody from like our audience, like our UFL audience, but man, there is an audience for everything.
Yeah, it's
like
true.
If like people were adamant about the robot wars, where you're watching those little there's some highlights. So I'm sure there will always be a fan base for anything, but I'm pretty sure the people who are students of mixed martial arts or different combat sports where they're used, I don't think they would ever be turned on by, but who knows, maybe.
Yeah, they want to see. It's a gladiator sport. They want to see the blood.
The body. They want to see the blood. They want to see people fight through pain and fight through fatigue and broken stuff and come out because they've built themselves, their bodies, with so much muscle memory and resilience that they can come out victorious. AI kind of removes a lot of that, which obviously lowers the impressivity. Like it's not as impressive, but I'm sure a lot of people, I would be interested in what that looks like. So people would get curious.
Yeah. So you're around a lot of fighters, and as this is a mental health podcast, I'm curious on your thoughts with, can there be a synergy between fighting and mental health? And more so, is there a stigma around it in the fighting world, around mental health itself, and as far as being open and vulnerable?
I definitely should preface I'm new to the promotion world where I now get to have much deeper conversations with a variety of fighters than I've ever had before. I used to train as a kid and I'd talk deeply with one training buddy or one. So I never really knew what the industry kind of was, but it is very apparent that the mental health, whether it's your come up, you're building this, you're terrified, are you going to get your shot? Are you going to get your opportunity to show what you can do when you do get your shot? Are you going to choke? Are you going to explode and be a Conor McGregor? Or are you, all those things take a toll on your mental health, especially as you're pushing your body to the limit every single day. But then when you're done with your fighting, and that's been your identity and your self brand for so long, where do you then transition to finding value in your image later? So the mental health of, well, then who am I now if I'm not a fighter? And it's been really cool to have these conversations with all these variety of fighters in the different stages of their careers, having the heart to hearts with them. Mental health is massive in the fighting world. And I don't know, because they're the toughest guys out there. They're the manliest men of men, that I don't know if they're all comfortable voicing it because of the stigma of being vulnerable, and they're the ones that have to always be strong and always be. But I really hope we can get through that, not only in just fighting, but in every industry, whether it's football, basketball, gaming. F3 is doing a lot in the streaming content creator space.
Yeah.
And they're on the computers all the time, late at night. Their mental health, ups and downs are drastic. So I think mental health and just everything is crucially important to focus on.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And what do you think is in your opinion, the best way that we can go about making these conversations more accessible and acceptable? Because you mentioned, and I agree with you 100%. I saw this when I played football at a high level. It's an alpha male sport. It's a gladiator sport. I think the only, more violent sport out there is combat sports. Yeah. But football is up there. It's very violent as well. Everyone wants to see the big hits. People like to see people get knocked unconscious because they're like, that was a crazy hit, and hear the crack of the pads. And I found that it was a hard conversation to have because society sees these men as gladiators. And why subject yourself to in being open and showing people that, wow, there's an emotional side to me, because everyone's looking at you like the baddest man in the room, right? How do you see society combating that to be able to make that more accessible so that fighters feel comfortable having those conversations?
Acceptability. I didn't know how to answer your accessibility, because whether there's groups on Facebook or there's whatever, but acceptability, I think doing exactly what you're doing, the more we can show how often and how acceptable it is to warriors of the sport of not only football, but MMA, but even other warriors, like actors or people who are playing roles in movies that people look up to, that are the badasses in these movies. The more people can become on podcasts or share stories on their social medias of them just being like, man, I am at my low right now. Being willing to have those people, those keyboard warriors, be like, oh my gosh, well, what a baby, what it's amazing how often I'll post something that's kind of raw and embarrassing or weak looking, how many people will come to your rescue and support the people who are calling you. Because that's the natural consequences of these bullies. And the more people see that, wow, there's people standing up for this person, not only is he, that's what's going to make people more acceptable, more accepting of it, and hopefully be willing to do it themselves.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think it's so important that people see that there are others out there that are having these conversations, and that destigmatizes it. And then being able to also, though, shine a spotlight on that support, that people go, oh, look, that person just came out and said this and was very vulnerable, and look at everybody that's coming to their defense, right? Yeah. I think just having the conversation more. In fact, that's why I started this in the first place, is because it's still kind of taboo. Men don't want to have these conversations. I don't know if we ever were taught. I certainly wasn't growing up. Did you? Because you're very open. You're an open book, man. I mean, people, you'll pour it out there for anybody. Have you always been that way?
I don't know. I definitely feel like I have been, but I grew up with a dad who, my parents got divorced when I was really young. He was an athlete himself. He grew up, kind of being the stud basketball player. He could definitely play other sports if he wanted to, but he was really good at basketball. But he was the big guy, and he ended up having a stroke at 36, I believe, and or 32. Shoot, I don't know. It was young because I was young, and it completely handicapped him from the waist down, and your ego has to go out the window. Now you're asking for help to get out of cars or sit in restaurants and all this other stuff. And so learning from him how you can leave what you thought made people like you to now seeing people love you no matter what your physical stature is, or being more dependent on people. And it also just kind of made him more sensitive. He'd cry at Hallmark commercials. He's like, it's because of the stroke, whatever. But it just really allowed me to be comfortable, because he's still a big guy, just naturally he's a big guy. My friends got really comfortable, and seeing how comfortable they were because he was so open, I was like, I want to be that when in my household, when my kids are around, that, there's not this tough dad that is unapproachable and whatever, and he'll watch girl movies and cry with us. And so kind of seeing that and seeing the benefits it had in the household, I think played a huge role in my openness.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You had a positive figure in your life that was showing you step by step along the way every day that this is acceptable. I think that completely tells me why you are the way you are. That's awesome that you had that. I want to ask you about, we talked about this right before we jumped on here. You had mentioned that you recently were doing ketamine therapy.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, because I know very little about it, other than I know that it's very powerful to help people address certain past traumas or just come to moments of realization. First off, tell me how that came to be.
Yeah.
Why ketamine therapy? And then just, maybe talk about some of the things that have surprised you through doing it.
When I first heard about it, and was suggested to do it, I didn't realize that it was previously this abused drug that had a stigma to it. So now when I went and told people that I did the first time, they're like, the hell? Did you jump off the wagon? Or whatever. So I actually didn't realize the stigma that ketamine had, because when I was talking with a psychologist, I was just like, doc, I feel not right. I don't feel like I'm in reality sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, is this all made up in my head? I feel like I'm literally losing sense of reality. Am I going psychotic? Doc, like, help me. And now, balancing hormones, I didn't realize how testosterone and all these other things, when you're balanced, changes your whole life. Like, I feel so much better. But I literally felt like I was losing my sense of reality for a while, where it starts scaring you. You're like, am I suicidal? Am I all these other things? Because you just don't know what's real. And I was like, am I in a white padded room and I'm in a straight jacket and this is just all in my head? Is because my life is also really good. I was like, if I was psycho, this is the life that I would envision for myself. I'd be like, so don't wake me up if I'm in the psycho room. Like, this isn't what I want to be.
Yeah.
So talking with my psychologist and stuff, as we were exploring whether it could be chemical imbalances, hormone imbalances, all these other possibilities, they were like, well, it sounds potentially like just depression. This was in 2020, you know, COVID was going through like everybody was worried that their whole life changed, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, am I losing my mind? They're like, it might be depression, it might be anxiety. Let's do some it might be childhood trauma that you don't even really remember. And ketamine helps. It shows studies that it has long-term anxiety and depression benefits, but it also helps you resolve some of the past traumas, whether it's neuropathic clogs that you've self-defend, you've blocked, and all these, I don't know, they had all these cool words. I was like, I'm in. And again, didn't know that this was like a acid trip type thing, but it's a IV. Okay. You go sit in front of a doctor. They have you on a heart, you know, because it's a freaking crazy drug. And they started the drip, and I just remember being like, whoa, and then like my stomach feeling like it was like just being crazy. They're like, oh, sorry. They had it on too high. Oh. And I was like, what the? But when they had on the right amount of drip, it was the weirdest trip I've ever been on. You do 6 of them over 2 weeks. So you do like one every 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
And just talking with this doctor, I'm going to make a movie about it because I felt like it opened my mind to what this whole world is, you know, whether it's simulation, whether it's Matrix, whether it's whatever. But I feel like in my trip, I just had this enlightening that, you know, I won't give away the whole movie, but I'm going to tell the movie. I'm going to produce the movie and it'll make sense. But it was just really awesome to start feeling so much relief on whoever's watching this is going to think I'm freaking psycho, because I started being completely okay with, if this all isn't real, mm-hmm. that's okay. Like, it's real to me. Mm-hmm. And what is reality? Like, reality is what your reality is, totally your reality. I don't know what your reality is so that sounds psycho. It's like, of course we're all living in the same dimension. This reality is this. Have you seen Free Guy?
What was it called?
Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds.
No, I haven't.
And Buddy. Okay. Well,
is it new?
It's kind of new. It's maybe 2-3 years old.
Okay.
And he's an artificial intelligence in a simulation. And he starts being like, this isn't real. We're in this game. And Buddy was like, this is real. Like, this interaction, these conversations we're having is real to me, and that's enough. And I'm kind of like, whoa, I don't need other people to be like, you're losing your mind. You're losing reality. Well, if this is my reality, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
So I don't need to worry that I'm losing my mind mm-hmm. anymore. And that was kind of liberating for me. Yeah. Or maybe I just went completely into my psychosis and I've lost my mind completely.
So you did 6 treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And is that after that, I mean, you don't have to continue doing them, or can you choose to, or?
You could choose to. I chose not to because I felt like I got the benefits out of it that I needed. Uh-huh. But I don't think you're supposed to do more than 6 treatments, at least not within a year, I believe, or ever. But because I bet if you do it enough, you actually will go crazy. Mm-hmm. So I just did the 6 and I feel crazy enlightened. Maybe I'm still in the chair. Maybe I'm still this is in my head, but I don't even give a crap. Like, I feel I love my reality, and hopefully it's the real reality.
Oh, I love that. I was in a similar spot. I told my parents, with all the things I've went through, I said, as long as I'm happy, let me stay in La La Land. Totally. Whatever this is, if you don't understand it, you say I went out full Hollywood. I said, as long as I'm happy, then just let me stay in this reality.
Please.
Because I'm happy in this perspective. You might perceive it differently, but all that matters is the way I perceive it and how I choose to go about it.
If I'm crazy unhappy in your reality, or what you think should be my reality, why would you want me in there?
Yeah.
Like, why would you want me in that? And so that's what I kind of say in my psycho room. If I'm in a white padded room, I'm like, keep me tight, keep me warm, don't make a lot of noise. Just let me
security
sleep.
Blanket.
Yeah. Just keep me fed. And because we can make our reality so many things, and we have so many plans over the next 10, 20 years of my life that are going to be so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel liberated enough to know that I control my reality in this simulation, whatever I want to perceive is, that's empowering. I'm like, I'm going to control this, and you guys wait to see what I can build in this reality. So it's kind of fun.
So what's next? What's the next big thing you're building?
I mean, obviously F3 is kind of the biggest focus. It's $8 billion company within 48 months. Yeah, we're opening up Asia, Europe next year, and we're taking it public, and everybody's going to kind of the giving back. I don't need a whole bunch of more money myself. So we're doing this crowdfund where people who are just our avid consumers right now, who's been our biggest advocates, they can get in on this crowdfund where they can buy shares at what's going to be even cheaper than when we do our IPO. So when investment bankers can buy in, they're buying at double what our just blue collar fan base got in at. Yeah. And so when I ring that bell, whether it's NASDAQ or the NYSE, everybody's going to be like, yeah, we made it. And so we're going public next year, but we're doing the crowdfund this year to get everybody excited because we're doing the big retail rollout this summer. We're starting in Arizona and California, and then we're doing all of our national chains after that. But then we're doing Europe and we're doing Asia. So that's our biggest focus.
Yeah.
Because then that paves the way for so much more opportunities. Like we're making our movies this year. We're doing our reality shows. We're doing UFL events. And those are all the passion projects. But then I can't wait when it's publicly traded and it's stable enough where I can turn over F3 to a president and a board, because I can't wait to focus on the philanthropic side.
Yeah.
F3 Communities is the 501c3 arm of F3 Energy. And when people start realizing that this logo stands for so much more than an energy drink or a mood drink or a hydration drink, they're like, wait, those are the guys that were chipping away at Trash Island. Those are the guys that, cleaned water in Africa. Those are the guys that helped mental health be completely more accepted across the world. That brand becomes so much more proud to wear whether they drink our products or not.
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to focus on for the rest of my life.
That's awesome, man. It's bigger than you, and what you're building is going to impact so many people. Real quickly, if people want to get involved in the crowdsourcing, how do they do that? Where do they go?
Yeah. Follow us on our different social medias, F3 Energy.
Okay.
And we are doing a big build up to it because we're only going to be open. We're only going to do a crowdfunding for 30 days.
Okay.
So it's basically going to be the minimum buy-in is like $100, and the most somebody can buy in is like $1,500, because we don't want one big shareholder. We want thousands of smaller shareholders because they're our fans. I want them to benefit when we go public. I don't want just one investment banker or rich, investor to make a lot of money. Let's all win together. So it's coming. October 15th is when we were aiming to open the fund or open the raise. And then we're going to close it November 15th. And then whether we've raised whatever the total amount would be, I can't remember. I think we're doing like 2% of the company is what we're offering in the crowdfund. But whatever is raised or not, we close November 15th, and then we do the IPO.
Then there you go again, man. Always keeping the people in mind, not letting too big of purchasers jump in and take the shares from anybody else. You want everyone to be able to win together. So Harrison, this has been an absolute just a joy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate you. Seriously, everybody is going to benefit from your message, and just know that I'm in your corner, cheerleading the whole way.
Yes, sir, man. We're just getting started together. So really appreciate you.
Love you, brother.
Love you too.